You trained the miles, now your race is only weeks away. Today, we're talking about every question you may have in the home stretch to your race day. We're talking about tapering, carb loading, race week, and race day, all the mistakes you should avoid, and the simple, no drama plan with Coach Alex Morrow of Resolute Running. Hey friends, welcome to Mealvana Endurance podcast, a show that shares stories, celebrates successes, and learn lessons from everything around endurance sports. I am Xuan Huang. I'm your host. I'm a runner. Today, our guest is Coach Alex Morrow. He's the founder of Resolute Running in Birmingham, and he's a nationally certified coach who has helped hundreds of athletes to their first marathons and huge PRs. Today, we're going to cover tapering do's and don'ts, what carb loading should look like, nutrition rehearsals, race week logistics, and race day mistakes you should avoid. Before we start, how are we doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I have to admit that I'm a little bit nervous because this is our inaugural episode of this podcast. So before we talk about the genesis of the podcast, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So again, my name is Alex Morrow. Interestingly enough, I was not a runner growing up. I didn't like running. I played sports in high school, I played sports in college, and we ran to get in shape for what we were supposed to do. Fast forward a long way, I went into the corporate world, and I spent 20 years working in television, and I had this great job, and I had the corner office, but I was overweight and not leading a very good healthy lifestyle. And my wife was the runner, and she would say, just in passing for years, hey, do you want to go for a run? I'm like, no, I don't want to go for a run. Why in the world would I go for a run? It seems like a horrible idea. And one day in passing, she's in the living room and she's tying her shoes and she says, do you want to go for a run? And I must have had a bad day at work. I don't remember why. But I said, sure, I'll go for a run. Why not? And, for the men listening, and this is, you may not know this, I'm 53 years old. At that time, I was probably 35, 36. In my head, I'm still that D1 soccer player, 18 years old. So when my wife said, let's go for a run, I said, in my head, just don't embarrass her. Run next to her. Don't run in front of her. Don't leave her behind. And all I remember from that little run was her waiting for me to ever stop saying, come on, baby, you can do it. You're almost here. Come on, baby. My little ego was crushed. And that lit a fire and it got me running. And that was the genesis of my running journey. Fast forward, 20 years, I opened a training center. We have 7 coaches. We work with massage therapists and sports nutritionists and sports psychologists. And we try to offer our athletes a very holistic approach to training, because I believe that no matter who you are, you should have the resources to become the best athlete you can be. And that's how we are. That's where we are. And that's how I met you. And it's been such a positive experience. And I hope you've had one as well.
Absolutely. And I kind of forgot to mention that Alex is also my coach. And that's why he's our first ever guest in this podcast. Thank you so much, because this podcast was literally put together within like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Remember, there was at the last of Speedwork 2 weeks ago. I was like, Coach, I think I'm going to start a podcast. Do you like this idea? And you were like, yeah, sure, let's do that, right? And then the same Wednesday, I approached Roni, our wonderful producer, and said, Roni, do you think we can put something together? And within 10 days,
we are. Well, I'm honored to be your first guest. It's very exciting.
I do want to talk a little bit about the genesis of the podcast. And Lee and I, we've been working on this Endurance Athletes app, and we were doing a lot of user research. We were talking to a lot of people, in this community in Birmingham who are endurance athletes. And about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we're talking to Andy Grant. I mentioned to you that I was talking to Andy Grant, and he was sharing the story how he lost 70 pounds and become like a beast of triathletes, and done a dozen of Ironman, half Ironmans, and was listening to the story. I was like, I'm actually having fun listening to this. And this story is worth living like outside this office, just like as user research material. This should be out there, be heard by other people. So that's why Lee and I thought maybe we should have a podcast together. Let's just have a try. And then when we pitched this idea to Ronnie said like, you are a small podcast with like aspiration, like think about dream big. So maybe I will ask you this question. Like if we dream big, who would be your kind of like moonshot guest that we can bring in to this podcast? And then maybe at that day it would be like, we made it.
Sure. So it depends on the field, right? If you want an ultra runner, I would say like Courtney DeWalter. Amazing,
Okay.
right? If you wanted a marathoner, it would be Dakota Jones or someone like that. So every little field, if it's triathletes, that's your world, right? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But you would want to bring in the best of whatever position there is, whether it's a cyclist or a swimmer or, it's how cool would it be to have Michael Phelps come on your show?
Oh my
right?
gosh, Michael Phelps, we're calling your name.
Well, and the beautiful thing now is he doesn't have to be sitting right here. We could do it digitally. You sit right here and he's on the video monitor right here and you have the interview. So it's very doable.
I will tell you that one of the podcasts I listened to is Ellie on the Run.
Oh, it's a great podcast.
Great podcast. And I was so inspiring her journey, especially at this stage. I don't know whether you know or not. She was recently, back in the remission of like, breast cancer.
Breast cancer, yep.
Yeah, of course, we wish her the best. But if I can ever get her on the show, it would be great.
Absolutely.
Well,
and then outside of the professional world, like you said, you have all these influencers. You have all of these people who are making a huge presence, not because of how fast they are, but how many people they're bringing to the sport and how much fun they're having. So there's a lot of different avenues for you to explore.
Yeah. All right, so too much deviation from our main topic. Let's bring it back. We're talking about the home stretch, the race day. So the first question I have really is regarding tapering because, 2 weeks, 3 weeks leading to your race day, you're supposed to, slow down. So for a marathon rookie, newbie, what do you see the most common weeks before mistakes?
So there's a couple. The first one is, the assumption that you're going to go from point A to point Z in your training plan, the entire cycle, and hit all your workouts and hit all of your long runs, doesn't happen. Very rarely does that happen. So I'll see a rookie who missed a workout at some point or who missed a long run, and they figure, well, now that I have this taper, I have extra time, I can make those workouts up. Massive mistake, right? We want to taper. We don't want to keep stressing the body as we're trying to taper. The second fallacy I see, or the mistake they make, is because they've been training so hard for so long, they may not have been trimming the bushes at the house or painting the house or all of these projects they're supposed to be doing, but they haven't had time because of their training. So now they try to do all this physically demanding labor in the taper. Huge mistake, right? You're supposed to be resting. You're supposed to be consolidating your gains. You're supposed to be eating properly, sleeping well, no stress. And instead, they put all that extra load on them and it defeats the whole purpose of the taper.
And what about the type of run exercise you do? Because during tapering, you're still supposed to run a little bit, right? Would you say like, should people still, like if they don't have a coach or they don't have a run plan, should they still do like say speed work, intervals, fartlek, that sort of thing?
Yes, but it depends, right? So my philosophy is whatever you've been doing through training, let's say you have 2 quality sessions a week. You do speed work maybe on a Tuesday, and you have either a long run on the weekend or maybe it's a tempo on a Thursday. That format, which you've taught your body to do for months on end, you continue that format all the way through the taper, but you reduce the intensity and the volume. Yeah. So even though I'm not doing 7 miles of speed on a Tuesday, I might be doing 3 miles of speed on a Tuesday. Instead of doing my long run of 20 miles, which is my cornerstone long run, or 22 miles, I might only be doing 15 and then maybe 10 or maybe even 7, depending on where you are in your cycle. So you want to keep the format in place, but reduce volume and reduce intensity. And then even if we can get way off in the weeds, and then when we talk about the workouts themselves, those change. We don't really need to do a VO2 max workout the week of our race. But there's nothing wrong with doing intervals at goal marathon pace with big rests the week of the race. So we're still doing speed work. It's just not as aggressive.
What about like strength, yoga, that type of thing?
So all of the extracurriculars, strength, yoga, cycling, whatever you're doing, should also follow a periodized program just like you're running. So you want to taper down all of that as well. If you go back and talk to our science friends, it takes 3 to 6 weeks for a physiological adaptation to take place. So if I'm doing a weight workout 2 weeks before my marathon, I'm not going to realize those benefits on race day, but I am fatiguing all those muscle fibers in my body and burning calories and et cetera. So I'm not helping myself at all. I'm just digging a hole that's going to make it harder to come out of on race day.
Fair, but I think a lot of athletes, I know the first time when I heard about the idea of tapering, I worry about lose fitness.
Sure.
Is there such a thing as tapering too conservatively?
Yes and no. And what you're describing is called the taper tantrums. People
Okay.
don't like it, right?
Right,
They
yeah.
feel like they're losing fitness and I've been working so hard and all of a sudden,
weight.
Right. And now I'm supposed to slow down and that's going to mess things up. Here's a little interesting tidbit. There was a study, and it's always on cyclists. I'm not sure why it's always on cyclists, not runners, but there was a study and there was 2 groups of cyclists training for the same race. One group, they gave the traditional taper for their cycle, right? And again, I'm not a cyclist, so I don't really understand the ins and outs of it, but less volume, less intensity, traditional taper into the race. The other folks, they told to do nothing for 2 weeks. Nothing. Sit on the couch for 2 weeks. On race day, the group that sat on the couch for 2 weeks outperformed the folks who tapered. But, and there's always a but their emotional quotient, their happiness quotient was in the toilet. They were not happy. They felt distraught because they weren't doing anything. So the entire 2 weeks leading up to it, they were very stressed out, even though they performed better on race day. So there is such a thing as too much taper. You can become flat. You can reduce your volume too drastically. But if it's within a 2-week window, you're going to be fine.
I know, like, if my coach asks me to not do anything in 2 weeks, I'm going to turn off my Garmin. I'm just going to go out there and do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're not, because all my runners do this. They think that we don't see these things, but we do. I'm like, that was a really long walk of 17 miles. So yeah, it can be nerve-wracking, but trust the taper. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
All the hard work is done in your peak week.
Yeah.
From that point on, it should be easy work to get you ready for race day.
Yeah. Okay. So let's switch gear and talk a little bit about nutrition. Now, during the tapering, because the exercise volume is reduced, do you think that we should also reduce caloric intake?
Yes, everything's going to be a depends. Okay. So just so you know, because there's never a black and white answer to anything. Yes, but not drastically. Right? If you went from for your novice marathoner, maybe you're peaked at 40 miles in the week, maybe 50 miles a week, something like that, and then you start dropping volume, you shouldn't cut your food in half just because you're running 20 miles a week. That's a mistake, okay? On the big workout days where you were consuming a lot of calories, I'm okay with you cutting back there, but overall, I want your nutrition to stay pretty consistent. As a matter of fact, we want you, and I'm sure we'll talk about carb loading a little bit, we expect you to put on a couple pounds on race week. And a lot of athletes will freak out about that, but that's the point. It's water retention. We want that to happen. So it's not a bad thing. Cut your calories gently, nothing drastic.
And this is a great segue to start talking about carb loading.
Sure.
Now I know that I think the consensus that carb loading is essential, but there are also like some ideas out there that say like should be personalized, individualized. So first of all, do you think it is essential, and what are the common pitfalls athletes should avoid?
Sure. So I do, but my definition of carb loading is probably different than how it was defined in the 70s and 80s and so on. So in the old days, carb loading was the night before your race, you went out to an Italian restaurant and stuffed your mouth full of pasta. Well, that's just stuffing your gut full of pasta. That's not carb loading. So the way we look at it is if you treat your body like it's a performance vehicle, if you are a race car and you're going to go out and race, you want to put in quality fuel. Right? So I wouldn't put in 87 octane. I would put in the most expensive fuel I can to put in there. For carb loading, number one, we want healthy carbs and not junk. Number two, it's not so much about eating more as it is about changing the percentages of your plate.
Gotcha.
Okay. So in high volume, our athletes are eating somewhere between 50 to 60% of every plate they eat is probably carbs. Right? In very high volume, that percentage might change a little bit higher. It might be 65, might even be 70% if you're running 80 miles, 90 miles for my more advanced marathoners. When we get to race week, about 3 days beforehand, we're going to start playing with those percentages of carbs. So if my dinner plate usually has 50% carbs, 3 days beforehand, I might make it 60% carbs. 2 days beforehand, I might make it 75% carbs. And the day before, it might be almost all carbs with just a little bit of protein thrown in. So I'm not changing the volume of food I'm eating. I'm changing the percentages of the food I'm eating. The other change I would make is, or I recommend, is while we promote healthy carbs, which are like whole wheats, whole pastas, whole wheat pastas, complex carbs, because they are longer, slower to digest, the day before, we tell our athletes to switch to simple carbs, white rice, white potatoes, white bread, because it moves through your system very quickly. Right? We don't want to have it all built up inside of us. So we want it moving through. And that's a whole nother podcast we can talk about on getting movements before your race.
There was a book about it.
There is a book about it. Exactly right. You definitely want to poop before you run. But so carb loading is more about topping off your fuel tanks.
Yeah.
There are formulas out there, and I'm not going to get into all of that, but there are formulas for every gram of carbs per kilogram of body weight. And
Right.
there's actually formulas you can follow. A lot of people get way off in the weeds in that.
Yeah.
If that's your thing, I'm all for it. Go do it.
Yeah.
For most people, just eat a little bit more carbs, a little bit more carbs, a little bit more carbs, and then go race.
Yeah, yeah. And there is a formula, I think there's like 8 to 12 gram of carbs per kilogram.
Gram of body weight, yes.
Yeah, and there are calculators out there,
Yep.
and there are like ways for you to track it. But you believe like loosely, because I think most people are just loosely adding more carbs that will be good enough.
Absolutely right. Now, and then the follow-up of that is you ask mistakes. There are many people who, you would be surprised at how many athletes just don't eat carbs in general because they think for years you've heard all these diets. You know,
Right.
if you want to lose weight, you got to get rid of the carbs. And then an athlete will start running because between the exercise and not eating carbs, they're losing a ton of weight.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you lose weight. It doesn't make you run fast, right? And then you bonk out at the end of your marathon. And it's a bad experience.
Yeah.
So don't restrict the carbs, number one. And then number two, the flip side of that is don't overdo it. Don't eat too many.
Yeah, yeah. I had that bad experience on my second marathon. I think I skipped dinner. We were traveling, so there was that dinner place just did not have the right carb loading food that
Sure.
I desired to have, and I did not eat enough. And sure enough, the second day, I get to experience what bonking feels like in mile
Not fun.
18. No, the
Not
last 8
fun.
miles was the most difficult part. So for the athletes out there, I've learned my lesson. I hope that you never get to experience what I had to experience.
You know, and I love that you brought that up because we talk about race day fueling, we talk about pre-race meals, we talk about the dinner the night before, and it's all very, very important.
Yeah.
And it's simply math, right? So I'm 6'3", I'm a big guy. You're 5 foot? Yes, she nods.
Let's
So,
pretend.
so our caloric needs are going to be different. But here's some simple math for you. The average human, yours is going to be less, mine's going to be more, burns about 100 calories a mile. The average human can store about 2,000 calories worth of energy in their body. When you hear someone say, I hit the wall in the marathon, where does it always happen? Mile 18,
Yes.
19, or 20. What's the common math there? 100 times 20 is 2,000.
Right, that's exactly-
You ran out of fuel,
Yeah.
right? So eating properly and then fueling properly during the race gets you past that wall.
Yeah, yeah. Now let's talk a little bit other nutrients. How should athletes approach, say, sodium, hydration, caffeine, and fiber intake?
Sure. So let's start with caffeine. Caffeine is a PED. It's a performance-enhancing drug, and it's 100% legal. I say use it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, everybody has their own strategy. Some people like to have caffeine from the get-go, and they keep that caffeine going all the way through the race.
Yeah.
Some people like to wean off of caffeine and then use it as way into the race as a boost to kind of get them to the finish line. Whatever the case may be, I think you should use them, right? Make sure you're practicing that in your training because some
Right.
people don't respond well to caffeine when they're working aggressively. Fiber is dangerous. It's a crucial thing for your diet 99% of the time. The day before your race and the day of the race, maybe not so much diet, right? The big salad the day before your race is probably going to end poorly for you. So maybe you avoid that there. As far as electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, things like that, that is very, very individualized. There's actually a lot of new technology out there, like the BioNix sensor, for instance, where you wear it on your arm and it's connected to your phone and you go for a run and it monitors what electrolytes you're leaching the most of. And then it gives you a report at the end of it that says, you leach more sodium than you do anything else. And here are a variety of ways you can supplement that. Are you a heavy sweater? You do sweat very little? So all of those things are very different. Most of the time you can get away with just drinking traditional sports drinks,
Right, yeah.
whether that's, I can name all of them, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you're taking in sports drinks, you should be fine. And if you find that you're not, there's a lot of electrolyte replacement capsules, like salt sticks and things like that, you can supplement with as well. But again, practice in training. Don't decide on race day, I'm popping some of these pills and let's see what
Yeah.
happens, because it might be a disaster.
Like if let's say it's only like 2 weeks until the big day, and you only heard about rehearsing your nutrition, what should you do now?
Stick with what you've been doing.
Okay.
Now's
So
not the time.
Nothing new.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
Because if you're already tapering, your biggest long runs are already done.
Yeah.
So you don't know what this is going to do to you at mile 23.
Right. Yeah.
Because you didn't have a chance to practice that.
Right. Yeah. But in coming next cycle, let's get that rehearsing.
And start at the short
early.
runs.
Yeah.
If you are going, Sean, when we first came together, you said, I want to qualify for Boston.
Yeah.
And I loved your excitement and your passion. And what I love about you is you're very meticulous about your strategy, right? You want to make sure everything works. So if you're going out for a 10-mile long run, you might think, I don't need a gel for that. It's not very far. But if I'm going to be racing on race day, I should practice that even on my 10-mile run, right? Yeah. So you want to practice everything in training.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's talk about race week and race day. And these days, a lot of athletes do travel to their race. Mm-hmm. So what tips do you have for athletes who are traveling to races?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a list person, so I believe in checklists. Create a checklist for yourself well in advance and check it off as you go. I flew to Colorado for a race one year and did not take my running shoes. You know, they say nothing new on race day. Well, I ran 26.2 miles in a pair of brand new shoes and I didn't die, so it was fine. But a checklist at that time would have helped. So I now make sure everybody has a checklist, go through it all, make sure your logistics are taken care of. The last thing you want to do is stress and missed flights or showing up your hotel and not having a reservation or not having a car rental. That will derail your entire week. So make sure your logistics are taken care of. Make sure you have a checklist. And then check the weather, for goodness sake. Make sure you're planning for those contingencies as well. I see so many people show up at a race and it's raining and they don't have a hat and they don't have extra glide for their body parts that are going to be hot and blistered now. And so it's making sure you know all of the particulars that could and can go wrong, I think is the key.
I mean, my race in Chicago is still 3 weeks away. I'm already starting to check weather in Chicago. I'm like, they're not even telling me anything beyond 2 weeks away. I was like, telling me, I need to know what Chicago weather is like 3 weeks away. But I want to add to that. There was one year that I was traveling to Seattle for the light at the end of the tunnel race. What happened is I had my shoes in my check-in bag. And they lost my baggage when I made the connection. And they did not, they delivered, I remember the day when I arrived. First of all, it was super delayed when I got to the hotel, 3 a.m. in the morning. Wake up in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have my shoes with me. They did find my baggage and arrived to the hotel like 3 p.m. the day before the race. And
That's so stressful.
It was so stressful. So like if I can give anybody advice out there, make sure you hold on to your running shoes for the dear life. Yes. That's the one thing that you cannot go and get something new.
Well, and expand on that, your entire race day kit, your shorts, your tank or your singlet or whatever you're wearing and your shoes, put in your carry-on. Yeah. Take it with you. And then everything else can go in your check bag.
Yeah.
You know what? If I can't dress up to go out to dinner after the race, I don't care. At least I was able to run the race.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, what are the rookie mistakes first-timer marathon should avoid on race day?
Race day. One is they get very amped up. And when that gun goes off and you're excited and the adrenaline starts kicking, let's say you're training to run a 4-hour marathon, which is a 9:09 pace. If you go out and run those first 5 miles at 8:30, you're going to pay for it in those last 3 miles. Yeah. So you have to be able to control yourself, control your emotions. Not another rookie mistake, and we're going to back up just a little bit, is the day before the race. They go to the expo and they walk around for 3 hours, and then they're in a new place because they're traveling. So in your case, maybe you were in Seattle and you've never been there, and so you want to go on a tour and you do a walking tour of downtown. All of that negatively impacts race day. Sit on your tush and do nothing the day before if you can. Race morning, be smart, have your food laid out the morning of, have your clothes laid out the morning of, make sure you pin your bib on your shirt, you've seen all the pictures of flat Sean, yes. Flat Lee, flat whoever. Do that. There's a reason for that. You want to make sure everything's laid out because at 5 a.m. is not the time to go, where's my watch? Oh my goodness, where's my socks? Have all that squared away. On the family side of it, I know I'm jumping all over. If you're at a big race, we had 3 teammates in Berlin this past weekend for the Berlin Marathon. Their families are there. How do you meet them after the race? You have to plan those logistics out. It's challenging. There's 50,000 runners, right?
Yeah.
So make sure there's a plan for that. Make sure there's a plan for you to get to the corral. make sure you know what wave you're going in and timing it correctly. So there's all kinds of little things that can go into a race morning that can mess it up. But if you have practiced it all and you've laid it all out and you have your checklist, you're going to be fine. Yeah. The biggest thing that hurts runners is fear, right? The fear of the unknown. Yeah. If you've practiced and practiced and practiced, there's no unknown. Right? It takes all the fear away.
Yeah. Can you tell a little bit? Because I remember, the first race I did, once you started coaching me, you were talking about the split, like positive split, negative split. Can you explain, just in case somebody, doesn't know about this, what is negative split and what is the best pacing strategy?
Sure. So a negative split means the back half of your race is faster than the front half. Positive split obviously is the reverse, which means the front half is faster than the back half. And then an even split is where you basically are running the same pace every mile through the entire race. If you've ever blown up in a race, like you talked about hitting the wall, that's a positive split because odds are you slowed down dramatically. If you've ever finished really aggressively and you felt really good all the way and you kept on picking up pace, that's a negative split. Interestingly enough, the vast majority of world records at the marathon distance that have been set were technically an even pace. I mean, I say technically because there is a negative split, but it's usually because there's a kick in that last little 100 meters, 200 meters, which gets a little bit faster. The secret to marathoning is good, even splits, course dependent. So if you run Boston, for instance, Boston has a very fast downhill for 6 miles. And then it gets kind of flat, and all the way up to mile 13, you feel like a rock star. You're just zipping along like without a care in the world. And then all of a sudden you run into the hills. And everything slows down. Right. So in that situation, you might intentionally run a positive split, knowing that the first half of the course is faster, so I can bank a little bit of time, which is usually frowned upon in marathoning. But if I go through 2 minutes faster in the first half, I know I'm going to lose those 2 minutes on the back half, and it works out to an even split. On a course like Chicago, there's not a hill to be found. Even splits the whole way, right? Just take it in and stay confident. But too many people go out too fast. And it always bites them in the end. Yeah.
Now, I also just want to add to that, like if you do negative split, like the psychology part of it, like at the end, the last 6 miles, right? Because there was a saying like 26.2 mile, like a marathon is 20 miles warm up with a 6 mile race. Have you heard about a phrase like that? And the last 6 mile racing, you're actually like, you're passing people.
Yes.
That give you that psychology kick that you're doing well, you're killing there with it.
So we prescribed that. I don't know if I did this for you, but so Palmer, one of our teammates who just ran Berlin, it was her first marathon. She did really well. And she was very worried about what do I do from mile 20 on? Because in training, she only got to 20. How could I make it to 26? And now I know the science behind this. I know she's perfectly fine. But psychologically, she was very freaked out. Yeah. So the game we play is we go fishing.
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about. So her job is when she gets to mile 20, she no longer is allowed to look at her watch. I no longer care about your watch. From 20 to 26, all you're going to do is identify somebody. That guy up there that has the man bun and the shorts that are too tight. All right, track him down. And it might take a half mile. Slowly work your way up to him. Once you get there, you've caught a fish. Stay with that person for a little while and identify someone else. That girl in the neon green shorts, I'm going to go get her. Slowly work your way up. At the end of the race, Palmer has to reach out to me and say, hey, I caught 17 fish, right? Is it very important for her splits and all of that? No. It's very important to get her off the watch. It's very important psychologically to let her know that it's now a game. And by doing it, she actually runs a little bit faster. But when you get to mile 20 of a marathon, your watch just moves in slow motion. Every time you look at it, it's like, we haven't gotten any farther.
Oh my gosh.
We haven't gotten any farther. And the more you look at it, the more self-defeating it becomes.
Right, yeah.
So play a game. Do anything to get out of your head and focus on your surroundings instead of what you're feeling.
Just in 3 weeks, I'm going to go Chicago and go fishing.
Chicago's great.
Yeah. So tell people how, like for, say, marathon newbies, rookies, what should their gel strategy look like? And should they look up like gels that offered in the course at the miles they're offered? How would you approach it?
So if you are bound and determined to use what is being offered on the course, you should purchase those and practice in training, right? Whether that's SIS or Morton or whoever. I'm a bigger fan of taking what nutrition you need with you because you never know what's going to happen in a race. I was running a race outside of Salt Lake City. I won't say the name. But at that time, I was relying on the course for the gels. They said, we have these gel stations all the way. And by the time I got to the third station, they no longer had any gels. They were out. So from that point on, I was in a calorie deficit, and my race went from, I was on target to like a 252, ended up finishing at a 318 because I completely fell apart because I had no nutrition.
Oh, gosh.
So I tell people, practice with what you love, find what you love, and then bring it with you. That way there's no concerns.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And then start with the manufacturer's recommendations.
Yeah.
Every packet tells you, right?
Yeah.
What does Goose say? Every 45 minutes?
Yeah, 40, 30. Some people do it by mileage. Some
Totally.
people do it by time. I know that what works for me is like about 30, 40 minutes I have to take the gel.
So I usually say start with the manufacturer's recommendations, and then if you can increase it, do.
Yeah.
And a quick plug. So several years ago, I worked with Kylie Van Horn, who's a sports dietitian out of Boulder, Colorado. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was doing the Speed Goat 50K, and she had me taking in 400 calories an hour, which is insane in my world. I was like, there's no way I can do that. And for months we practiced, we trained my tummy to take in, because it was at altitude, you're racing at 10,000 foot up and it's 31 miles through the mountains. And I did it. And I've never felt so good in a race. So as Dean Karnaz says, distance running is an eating game. Whoever eats the most and keeps it down wins. Right? So something to think about.
Yeah. I think like gut training
Gut
can
training.
be another
Absolutely.
episode that we can do, and there are ways. And I used to just be a goo person. I luckily my GI system is pretty robust.
Right.
It always worked for me. But I do believe there is difference between different gels, and
Yes.
right now I'm testing because my race. I still have a little bit time to figure out what is the gel that I'm going to bring to my race. Yeah.
Well, and there's, are you okay with synthetic sugars? Do you only want all natural? I mean, there's so many different styles out there.
Do you want something sweet or less
Right.
sweet? With the consistency, what is the texture? There's so many things that goes into gel. There are like 200 different type of gels out there.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So, like, how many marathons have you done altogether?
So somewhere over 60, because I've kind of moved into the ultra world, and I still count those as marathons, but 50K and up is a slightly different beast.
Yeah.
So somewhere over 60
Do you
something.
still remember your first marathon?
I do, because it was not a good experience.
Tell us the story. We want to hear all stories.
Well, I'll do my best to be quick. So it was the Mercedes Marathon many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And I've learned as a coach now the past 20 years that people have these random numbers in their head, right? I want to break 4 hours in the marathon. Why is that important, right? Why? What's so magical about 4? But I wanted to break 4. I had no basis for this, but I wanted to break 4.
How long did you train for it?
I did a full cycle, so like 18 weeks, was running with the Birmingham Track Club. They were a fantastic organization. They had me out there running. I wasn't training. I was just kind of running, right? And on race day, I went out there, and back then Mercedes was a double loop course. So for the first 13 miles, I'm like, this is a breeze. I've got this. This is no big deal. And at mile 18, for those of you who are local to Birmingham, you come back through Forest Park. And I remember coming through an intersection, and the police officer said, "Sir, are you okay?" I jokingly said, "Do I not look okay?" And he said, "No, you don't." I was like, oh. And from that point on, it just went downhill. And then I'm run walking, and then I'm walking, and then I'm just hating life. Ended up finishing in like 405, 406, something like that. But here's when I knew I was done. Because my wife was at the finish line. She was very excited for me. She's like, "Yeah, you did it well. Do you want to go to the post-race party?" And Mercedes put it on the best parties. They had barbecue and live music and, beer. It was a huge party. I said, "Yeah, I just ran a marathon. Absolutely, we're going to the party." And we took about 4 steps towards the auditorium. And I said, "I don't think we're going to the party." She said, "What do you mean?" She's like, I think we need to go home. "Where's the car?" She said, "It's about 6 blocks that way." I said, "Okay, let's go that way." We went about a block, and I sat down on the curb, and she said, "What are you doing?" She's like, "If the car doesn't come to me, I'm not going to it." She said, "Are you serious?" Like, I don't think I can walk anymore. Oh. So she brought the car to me. She took me home. And then from that point on, she tells the story. And she said, "I rolled you into the bed." And we had a golden retriever back then. The golden retriever jumped up in the bed as well, lay down on top of me. She said, "I didn't see you for the next 12 hours. You just fell apart." Because I made so many rookie mistakes. I ran way above my fitness level. I had some arbitrary time goal. I didn't fuel properly. And when things started going south, I didn't adjust my race strategy. I kept pushing. And I blew up. So lesson learned. Now we teach our athletes, for your first marathon, don't get hung up on that. I want you to have a positive experience. I want you to high five the kids and pet the animals and, smile for the cameras. And when you get to the finish line, truly savor it and go enjoy your party. there's plenty of time to race fast. There's plenty of time to qualify for Boston. There's plenty of time to qualify for the Olympic trials if that's what you want to do. But don't think you have to do it in your first marathon.
Yeah.
So
Well, I felt the first marathon experience is always magical. I still remember my first marathon. My first marathon was also Mercedes. And I just remember the day before the race, I have just severe, butterfly in the stomach. That feeling never came back to me again. I have my second, third, fourth marathon, same feelings. I no longer can find that. But that was magical. It felt like falling in love. It's like something's happening. I'm so excited for something happening. That first marathon experience is just magical.
Quick tangent. That's when I decided I wanted to be a full-time running coach, because this kind of had just become a side hustle. And without getting into too many details, I'm a player coach, right? So if we're going to a race somewhere, I want to run. Well, I had just run the Columbus, Ohio marathon. It was the first time I qualified for Boston. I was coaching people, but just for fun. Yeah. So I went to Washington, D.C. for the Marine Corps Marathon. And we had 9 or 10 people running it. And I wasn't running. This was the first time I went to a race with my runners and wasn't running. And I got to just watch them run, and being at the finish line and having these folks come up to me crying and hugging me and kissing me. And it was such an emotional experience. And not to sound condescending, but I felt like a proud parent, right? All my kids were doing so well. Yeah. And then I realized that's so rewarding. And, to go back to what my dad used to say, if you want to help yourself, help someone else. Yeah. And that's what it was, right? And that launched into, I think I can make a career out of this.
Yeah. Follow your passion.
Totally. But help others, right? Yeah. That's the cool thing. And like you talked about, because I'm not a very, emotional guy. My father was a career military officer. My mother's Italian. Growing up, my life was black and white, right angles. There's no fuzzy gray areas, right? But you get to the finish line of a marathon. It's one of the most emotional places on the planet. There's so much hugging. There's so much crying. Yeah. You feel like you can do anything after you survive a marathon. Yeah.
And sometimes even you get emotional during that course,
sure.
during that race. I'm doing this. I'm living my life. That moment, it feels so present.
Absolutely right. You're doing things that the vast majority of the world cannot do.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Okay. So that's a wrap with Coach Alex Morrow of Resolute Run.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do with the community,
sure.
and thank you for coaching me. So tell us, where can people find you? Like Instagram, website, coaching sessions?
So we're on all the socials. Just look for resoluterunning.com. That's the easiest way to go. Once you get there, you'll find our website. You can see what we're all about. You'll find links to Instagram. You'll find links to Facebook for our older folks. So we're out there. And more importantly, when you're looking for a run coach, whether it's me or anybody else, don't believe the coach. Talk to the people they've coached. Right? That's always the answer, is to find out what the results were.
Right.
There's, especially in the social media world, there's so many people out there who are trying to be influencers in whatever field they're trying to say they're experts in, who give out such horrible advice. Find somebody that's certified, that knows what they're doing. In my case, this is my career. I'm a full-time coach. This is what I do. So find somebody who works with you, has your same passion, and has your same goals.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess this is the end of our first ever Mealvana Endurance podcast. I was, talking to Lee on our way over here, what should we give at the end of the podcast? And Ronnie is going to help me figure out the logistics. But, what I think that later on, when you come down on the show, we will have a packing list for you to take to your race day. We will have a nutrition plan for you to download. And I will work with Coach Alex together to make sure that those are, it will, approved by experts. And we will have a newsletter for you to sign up and follow. So, and if you are from this community and you believe in what we do send us a message about who you want to see we bring to the shows. Whoever in the community or somebody beyond the community you want to see, and what kind of questions you want to hear them answer. So that's it. Thank you for listening in. That's the end of our show. Let's do a high five.
High five. This was great. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.